Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. Today, brands don't just have an awareness problem, they have a trust problem. People are overwhelmed by ads, skeptical of marketing, and craving something real. So, let us tell your story in a way that actually resonates. Brands partner with the Transform Your Mind podcast because this isn't just advertising, it's trusted influence. Our audience is deeply engaged in healing, mindset, faith, and personal growth, and they are actively supporting brands that align with their transformation journey. Your brand is featured through a CEO or expert interview that positions you as a thought leader, host read pre-roll and mid-roll ads woven naturally into other episodes, and long-term visibility across our full media ecosystem. Explore brand partnerships. Visit myhelps.us/partner. That is myhelps.us/partner. So when you revisit that memory, I know the memory of the unthinkable that your father is, touching you and masturbating. Um, how did you feel about yourself? Do you feel somewhere that maybe you um kind of to blame? Where did your shame come from?
So my shame started there. So my father, my mother went blind and he dressed her, helped her get ready, and he took her to the hospital. And before he left, he told me that it was my fault and that we had to keep it a secret. And, watching your mother fall to the ground and wake up and not be able to see for, somebody who's not even 5 years old yet, it was just so shocking. I blamed myself, and this is one of the things in the book that makes my healing journey so complicated because I not only felt shame over, once I figured out that what we were doing and the incest, but I also felt shame because I thought I'd hurt my mother. I thought that I had hurt her. I write with my badness.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Andrea Leeb, author of Such a Pretty Picture. And Andrea and I are going to be talking on the topic Surviving the Unthinkable, one woman's journey from abuse to healing. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Myra.
Yes, you're very welcome. Okay, so we're going to have a sensitive topic today. And it's sensitive because huh, it's really one of those heartbreaking stories. And it's a story that I have a big interest in because it's also my story. So before long, let me give you, I think the best way to introduce Andrea to you is to just give you a summary of her book. Lays it all there. So we'll lay in the table by her book summary. And this is her book summary. And the book is called, like I said, Such a Pretty Picture, which is a play on words. I think, right? It's a play on words, right? So Andrea is 4.5, the first time her father, David, gives her a bath. Although she's young, she knows there's something strange about the way he's touching her. When her mother, Marlene, walks in to check on them, she howls and crumples to the floor. And when she opens her eyes, she is blind. Marlene's hysterical blindness lasted for weeks, but her willful blindness lasts decades. The abuse continues, and Andrea spends a childhood living with a secret she can't tell and a shame she's too afraid to name. Despite it, she survives. She builds a life and tells herself she is fine. But at age 33, an unwanted grope on a New York City subway triggers her past. Suddenly, unable to remember how to forget. I like that. Andrea is forced to confront her past and finally begin to heal. This brave debut offers honest insights into a survivor's journey. Readers will feel Andrea's pain, her fear, and her shame, yet they will also feel her hope. And like Andrea, they will come to understand an important truth. Though healing is complicated, it is possible to find joy and even grace in the wake of the most profound betrayal. So, as I started out by saying, we might have some new listeners, but anybody that's been around my show for a while know that I too was sexually abused when I was 10 years old by a family member. And I carried that shame with me until my 40s when I wrote my book. And when I wrote my book, I even wrote it in a pen name because I didn't want anybody to know it was me. I didn't market it. I didn't do anything. I just wrote it. But I've I've gotten to learn that even though all of us feel shame, there's nothing to feel shame about because you can't give consent. Even if you think you might have been in my particular case, I mean, with a father, it's a totally different thing. In my particular case, I kind of felt that I was responsible somehow, but I didn't say no and I didn't, whatever. Um, uh, but you can't give consent. So that's one of the first things we need to stop the shame, right? Because the shame is not on the victim, the shame is on the perpetrator. So, Andrea, as we get into our topic today, your memoir opens up with a traumatic childhood experience that changed everything. I think it's the one where your father, when you were 4.5. All right. What was the emotional experience revisiting and rewriting those memories? Because it looks like you tried to forget.
I did. I mean, I really tried for a long time. As a young woman and as a teenager, I used to think if I was smart enough, pretty enough, educated enough, perfect enough, I could pretend the abuse away. And as we all know, that is just not possible. I think it's interesting because I had had a lot of therapy before I started writing this book, decades, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to just let this pour out. And I did. A lot of these memories just poured out of me. But interestingly, it was tough. And I actually, because I know that I need support and therapy, this is something I learned on my journey of healing. I went back into therapy at that point so that I could have someone to talk to and to work through those feelings. So it was difficult, but this was such a traumatic experience that no matter how hard I tried, it was ingrained in me. I could close my eyes and see the moment of my mother walking into the bathroom while my father was I he was I didn't see that he was masturbating, but he was breathing heavy while he was touching me, and I can see her fall to the ground. I can hear her scream. So it was so ingrained in me. It was I unfortunately one of my earliest memories.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so when you revisit that memory, um, uh, I know the memory of the unthinkable that your father is, you know, touching you and masturbating. Um, how did you feel about yourself? Do you feel somewhere that maybe you um kind of to blame? Where did your shame come from?
So my shame started there. So my father, when my mother went blind and he dressed her, helped her get ready, and he took her to the hospital. And before he left, he told me that it was my fault and that we had to keep it a secret. And, watching your mother fall to the ground and wake up and not be able to see for, somebody who's not even 5 years old yet, it was just so shocking. I blamed myself, and this is one of the things in the book that makes my healing journey so complicated, because I not only felt shame over, once I figured out that what we were doing and the incest, but I also felt shame because I thought I'd hurt my mother. I thought that I had hurt her. I write with my badness.
Mm,
I was a little girl, and little children,
yes,
we
that's a double whammy.
we
That is a
can
double
hurt
whammy.
children so easily. So it was a double whammy, and it was one of the things that, I think one of the hardest parts is my relationship with my mother.
Yeah, but she was only blind for a couple of weeks. How,
Yeah, a month.
a month, right? She was blind for a month, and then you said that it was very well written because your adjectives were very great, very good. But you
Thank you.
said that she was no longer physically blind, but she was blind to. So why do you think she allowed that to continue?
I am never gonna if I had the answer to that, then I could cure cancer too, probably. No,
Assuming she's
but
no longer alive?
she is no longer with us. And in I she did I she never admitted to me. Well, first off, for years, decades, she did not admit to anything happening. She refused to admit to it, and the evidence was, sheets. There was semen on my bed sheets, and I was 6 years old, 5 years old. Obviously, that came from somewhere, and there was only one person. And but she would never admit it. And I don't, I don't know if I think all I can think of is that she couldn't. The fact that she actually went hysterically blind, which is so rare, I think her own psyche wouldn't have allowed her to do that. And unfortunately, she loved my father unconditionally, and it was, and left myself and in other ways my sister to be his victims.
Ooh.
Keep that love. It's so complicated because, like I said, I love my mother, but I have to say she failed to protect.
Yeah. Which is one of the predominant things of a mother is protecting your child. You would die for them. And it's really interesting that you said that now my shame, I did not realize that it was wrong for some unknown reason. I mean, all I can say is that, I lived in a third world country, and I didn't have television, and I wasn't as smart as the young people here now, but I didn't think it was wrong. And when I first started having boyfriends and my boyfriends wanted to have sex, I realized that I was no longer a virgin. And then I thought that I was a bad girl. That's what we called, girls that slept around at the time. I thought I was a bad girl, and that's where my shame come from. And I didn't have sex with my boyfriends, which was a good thing because I didn't want them to know that I was no longer a virgin and all that. But so it helped me to become a person to me that's respectful because I thought that I had no respect. But what I'm trying to get to is when my daughter was born, I became fiercely protective of her because I did not want her to any way, shape, or form have my same experience. So I was a helicopter mom. I didn't let anybody near her. I didn't send her out for, to sleep at anybody's house or any of that stuff because that's what happened with me. My mom would send me to sleep at my grandfather's house. It wasn't really my grandfather. I called him grandfather, but he was just a family friend I called grandfather. So um uh, yeah, but I have heard stories where you're very right. Your mom blocked it out. It was so traumatic to her that she blocked it out. And you can actually block things out, which is why she probably never admit it to herself. But you can not admit something consciously, but subconsciously you're aware of it, right? So she blocked it out. So before we get off with this particular question, how did you feel about your parents, mother and father? I mean, as a child.
As a just see, I think it's so complicated because again, I keep always going to say because they were my parents. They're when you're little like that, they're your parent. Who else do you have? Especially when it's your parents. So
So you love them.
I love them. It took a while. I mean, with my father, because I didn't really understand what my father was doing to me either, or until I was really for me the abuse stopped around 13, and and by then I had figured it out. Obviously,
Well, the same with me. 13 was my number too.
well, we start learning things and we start figuring things out and we become less sheltered. But I kind of knew it was bad because there were things he always would, he also was always saying that I was crazy and, he was setting it up. So and that I had to keep this secret. And so I knew that that his guarding of that secret, I knew on some level he wasn't completely protecting me. I thought he was protecting us, but I started slowly figuring out, no, no, this is about you. Now with my mother, I I really felt guilty. I really did. I wanted her to love me. My mother kind of had a breakdown too after this, and she started hitting me a lot. So we went through a couple years where my mother just hit all the time. She turned her anger at my father to me
To you.
as a little girl. So I really, I started feeling like there was absolutely something wrong with me and I wanted that love back. I actually tried to commit suicide at 6.
You're kidding.
I stuffed
Wow.
my nose with paper and I taped my mouth and I put paper in my ears. It's in the book and I thought if I could prevent air from getting into any hole that I would die. And I thought if I die, because we had recently somebody we know had died, and then I thought if I could prevent my if I could die, then my mother would miss me the way that the our neighbors miss
Wow.
her grandmother.
Wow.
My first kind of my family is Jewish and I had gone to my first we do something called sitting Shiva after the dead, and I had gone to pay respects and do what they call a Shiva call with my mother. So I had watched my friend's grandmother family, the family, and saw how much they miss the grandmother, and I thought, well, this is what you have to do so people will love you.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
yeah. I
I'm assuming that someone found you and took off the
Well,
food.
my mother did. She was home, and I don't know how that I can't remember how long I lied there, but I was getting air in, and she took off the tape and she cried, and that's when she stopped hitting me. She promised that one she never hit me again, and again. Then I said, "Well, okay, she loves me."
She
This
loves
is
you.
proof.
Right.
It was,
Wow.
it was a complicated. It was complicated is my word of the day. It's my word of my life.
In today's market, brands don't just have an awareness problem, they have a trust problem. People are overwhelmed by ads, skeptical of marketing, and craving something real. That's why CEOs and purpose driven brands partner with the Transform Your Mind podcast. When brands partner with the Transform Your Mind podcast, they're not just buying an ad, they're gaining trusted access to a deeply engaged, values driven audience that is actively investing in personal growth, wellness, faith, and transformation. So, let us tell your story in a way that actually resonates. Your brand is featured through a CEO or expert interview that positions you as a thought leader. Hosts read pre roll and mid roll ads woven naturally into other episodes. and long-term visibility across our full media ecosystem. We distribute every partnership interview across multiple high impact channels, including 20 podcast platforms and directories, television distribution at PTWWN TV, YouTube and streaming platforms like Reveal, social media clips and reels, and a blog article with backlinks to your website. This means your message doesn't just disappear after one episode. It's repurposed, replayed, and rediscovered across multiple platforms. If your brand serves people who value healing, mindset, wellness, faith, and personal development, the Transform Your Mind podcast offers more than exposure. It offers alignment, authority, and authentic connection. To explore a brand partnership with the Transform Your Mind podcast, visit us at myhelps.us/partner. That is myhelps.us/partner. It is a very complicated story. It's not your normal, any kind of sexual abuse is not normal, but yours has got some different widgets to it that makes it the good complication. Yeah.
It does. Although I do a lot of work with UCLA Rape Treatment Center and something called Stewart House, which is where children are treated. And I hear about these cases and I see these children when I'm starting to realize all these cases are different and the same. Because in the end, they're all crimes perpetrated, 90% perpetrated by people that are close.
Yes.
Step
Yes.
fathers, stepfathers, fathers,
Yes. Aunts, uncles. Yep.
crimes
Yep.
of opportunity against the most guileless people.
Yes. It's very, very true. Yes. They're all crimes. You're right. You're right. Whether it's done by, yeah, but you used the word that to me is the most vile, and you said it, so I'm gonna repeat it. Incest. Yeah, I think that it's very hard when you can do that to your own blood, right?
Particularly hard. And, it's really, writing the book you were talking about, it took me, I have been writing all of my life, and it took me a long time to decide I'd always written fiction, to write this book because it is so taboo. And even it took me, I've been speaking and advocating for about 2 years, really almost all the time, so I've gotten really comfortable, but it took me a while to get used to saying that word or to tell people. I mean, it's not a great thing at a cocktail party, "What's your book about?" "Well, I survived incest," and people just freeze, but at the same time, I am not alone, unfortunately.
No.
It's not the biological parent, it's often or it's a grandparent, which is also incest or even non-related. There's this fine line. And I don't know if one crime against a child is worse than the other. It's just as a society, we are more, we're more repulsed by it.
Yeah.
And look, in Greek tragedy, people, it goes all the way back in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think it was in the Bible. Right. So yeah, I understand that totally. Yeah. Um and I want to comment on the fact that you're very comfortable talking to me, and that was my experience as well when I wrote my book and I had to talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more that's why, and I never went to therapy for mine. So, but again, talk therapy would help you because you're talking, you're verbalizing, you're talking it. But yeah, getting on shows and talking about my experiences on my website, it's in my book, and after a while, the shame just drops off. You're comfortable because now what you're doing is you're trying to help someone else, which is the purpose.
Correct, which is the purpose of my book, which is why I wrote it actually. I decided to write it during the when I started reading everything that everyone wrote in the Me Too movement. I realized that I too had a story to tell, and that my goal was, if I could originally, if I could help one person, one young woman or male, because, suffering, then I have done my job. And it's the most rewarding part of this because I've been on tour and been at bookshops and everywhere I go, everywhere, every bookshop, there is not a person comes up to me, sometimes more than one. Sometimes it's mostly female, but occasionally a male, and said, I went through this.
Yeah. And something, that's what the Me Too movement highlighted, because it was such a shameful topic that nobody spoke on it. I joined a group that was called Speak Your Silence. And the reason they named the group that is because victims never spoke. They just, I don't know what it is, but their poster child is someone with their hand over their mouth, because you never speak. And when you don't speak about things, you're in it by yourself. You think it's only you, and you have this incredible shame, and think that you're a bad person or you're a bad girl and you're responsible for this. And I've heard girls getting raped and someone would tell them, "Oh, it's because your skirt was too short," or something like that. And I'm talking about rape. I mean, not you know, child abuse is a little, to me, there's a different connotation.
I was raped later because unfortunately when you grow up without boundaries or without agency, you were able to respect yourself. I, on the other hand, thought that was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, or got into situations where, I really couldn't see the line between safety and danger. I had grown up with so much danger that I just couldn't figure it out. And I blamed myself for those experiences. So,
As well.
and that's what we do. I have to say that I love that you use the word victim. And I say this because, for years I was like, I'm not going to use the word victim. I even had trouble with survivor. And when I started working with the UCLA Rape Treatment Center, they use the word victim in the work that they do. And I really started thinking about it. And it's true. We are victims of a crime.
Yes.
Or survivor is a great word, but truthfully, the people who have been, the crimes that have been perpetrated against us, we are victims. And the people who perpetrated the crimes are criminals. Why is this different than being a victim of an assault or, a physical assault or a murder or a robbery? And why is victim, because you're a victim doesn't mean that you have to view yourself as victimized. You can choose to lead your life, embrace what happened, but not, not victimize yourself.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm glad that you said that, because yes, in my book, that's basically what I wanted to leave my readers with, that victims have no power. You are a victim, but you can't live as a victim. You have to take your power back. And I present it like, a card game. You have to deal with the cards that you're dealt, right? You can't just fold up because you're seeing a one or a two, and the dealer has a 10 or something showing. You got to deal with, and you take your power back by not allowing the fact that you're a victim to affect your life, and you go ahead and just go down in the mediocre life and a victim mentality life. But you are a victim because a crime was perpetrated against you, and it's a crime that it is not your fault. And that's basically what the message that we have to give loud and clear. When I heard that, I mean, when I joined that group that was called Speaker Silence, the first thing they said is, you cannot give consent. They might, even if you think that you've given consent, you can't give consent, because the law says that you can't give consent. So once you can't give consent, then it's not your fault. That means you were technically raped, right? So,
Mhm. No, I think that's right. And I think that is this is how we, the writing the book helped me to even further regain my voice. I mean, like I said, was already no longer considered myself a to be, victimized, and I had, had learned how to live with what the cards I had been dealt without making my whole life. It's a fine line. You don't want to deny it happened, and you don't want to but you still want to find that line to live a productive life. And one of the things that I learned is by keeping it a secret, that actually basically disempowered me.
Yes, exactly. Because when you keep it a secret, you're still ashamed. You're still ashamed. So it disempowered you. Now, now you said yours started your abuse stopped at 13. But that's the time when we are, we have we're now learning about self-respect, and we're now learning about you know, we have, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, how did your emotional experience when you went to high school, how did you know the fact that you knew this happened to you, how did you interact with other boys and
This is where it gets got for me troublesome, because I knew it happened, and although in many ways I had, it had stopped, and I think my father was very well aware that I was getting older and that I was starting to get a mouth. And but at the same time, I still viewed myself as damaged. I mean, it took a long time for me not to view myself as damaged. As I really, I think I felt on some level, I went through a period where I couldn't have sex, then I could, and and then I had, was promiscuous. I was self-cutting. I was cutting myself, and it was like, I feel like the muscle inside of us that allows us to become intimate and loving with people had been cut. The trust had been, and I was just doggy paddling upstream. So it was difficult. I was fortunate in that, you know, there's gifts that your parents give you despite. And one of the things my mother in particular always loved books. And, she gave me that gift of loving books. And
Mm,
I was very advanced reader and advanced for my age, and I loved school. School was like a safety zone for me, doing well in school. So I think that's part of what saved me, was that,
mm,
that ability to do well in school. I was able to leave high school early, and I didn't go away yet, but I went to a community college and took classes, and at 15 and a half. So I was, able to kind of have something positive to think about myself. And I think that really helped. But in some ways, again, it kind of stoned me. I got kind of like, I really thought resilience was just to pretend it didn't happen and keep going, keep going. Learned that's not true.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Like I said in the very beginning, our stories are so similar. I took a different path. I thought, I never used the word damage. It's very interesting that you used the word damaged. But I went to the positive end of it. I thought that, you know what? I want respect. And it's been the number one thing. It has been the number one thing in my whole entire life, that you disrespect me and I'm gone, because I felt that I I demanded respect, and probably because I felt that I was damaged, even though I never used that word, that I was damaged and I demanded respect. So yeah, I mean, I was just thinking back today because it's my ex-husband's birthday, and I was just thinking today that he slapped me and I walked out of that marriage immediately. I walked out of that marriage immediately because I said that I was not going to become a battered wife. And it's all part of that respect thing. You know, was that the right thing to do? I had a 5-year-old daughter, whatever. But that was a line in the sand, and he crossed it, and there was no going back. There was no turning back. So yes, it's how your brain works. So, but I when I read your story, I heard a similar story, and it was really very interesting. And I heard it as a coach, and same exact story where this girl was 4 years old, and her father, you know, in her story, her mother was unable to have sex with the father, and the mother just gave her to her father, and her mother ended up dying when she was 16, and she ran out the house, and she went into the promiscuous prostitution because that's all she knew, and was living on the streets. So yeah, I know that a lot of girls go into that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
right.
didn't do that. I mostly kind of used sex control. Then I walked out. I just kept leaving people. I'd get in a relationship, I'd stay for a year, I'd leave. And I just was like, I'm not capable of, I didn't want anyone coming too close so they couldn't hurt me too much.
Mm,
But I do actually think about that. There was a New York Times article recently about here in LA, there's a street, Figueroa area, and it was about the girls of Figueroa, which was all the girls who were being young women who were being sex trafficked. And, I read it and I cried because I just, there for the grace of God. When I see people or meet people who are being sex trafficked or are, going into, becoming sex workers involuntarily, I just think, oh, my sister and I talk about that. It's a miracle. I mean, it is an absolute miracle that, you know, I was able to at least fake it as long as I did and ultimately find a healthy, good life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. You know, we all have trauma in our childhood trauma. It's become a big thing. Almost everybody that comes on my show now talks about childhood trauma. It can all be traced. And you're right. Sex workers, what happened with them? I mean, sometimes they are kidnapped and they go into it, but sometimes it's circumstances to run away from home because it's so terrible at home and that's where they end up. But yeah, boy, it is a horrible, thing navigating childhood and challenges and young adulthood and all these different things. So, um, but the beauty of this conversation is that we're letting anybody that's listening that's been through that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Someone did something to you, but that's not who you are, right? You are valuable, you're beautiful, you're made in God's image, and some people just have ugly insides, and the people that go after young, innocent children, they have ugly insides, They are, and be, and because this was where I came from, I'm always gravitating to these stories, and I've heard some woozies. I've read some books with some woozies where what men have done to children and things like that. So, yeah, is how we all have the fork in the road. Which fork do you go down, right? But
Mhm.
you go down some fork, right?
Right. And I view this time of my life and writing this book as being really a gift because it is allowing me to repurpose what happened to me
Yes,
and create something good out of it. And
yes,
so, because you can spend your whole life asking, well, why did this happen to me? And or blaming even, which, that's a whole different story is, blaming your perpetrators, which, people do earn blame. But you can also take that and say, okay, I can repurpose this. And I'm not saying everybody has to write a book, but just in your day-to-day life, through kindness or
right.
to others.
Or help someone.
Right.
You help someone. That's one of the things, right? Yes. Now, um, you say that many survivors minimize their abuse. And you've shared that for years you told yourself it wasn't that bad. What helped you finally face the truth and begin the real healing process?
Well, I think
Was it that bad?
it was not that. It was, it's funny. Even when I was reading some of the reviews of the book, I was like, "Oh my god, these people are so shocked," and it's like, and then I was like, "All right, you write a book about it, of course," and but it was that bad. I think I kept trying to tell myself I could, and I wanted my family to be like a good family. I wanted to pretend that it was good. I wanted to have like a normal family and have all my friends and teachers think, "Oh, we have a normal family." So, yeah, I wanted to fit in with the world. But, for me, I really was struggling. As I said, I cut, and I also had moments where I really came close to committing suicide, both in college and then later. And I think I came to realize that if I didn't do something about this and come to, and for me, I needed to go see a therapist. Everybody, some it's life coaching, some people it's get it through their church. But I needed someone to talk to. And I realized if I didn't get some help for this and admit it to myself, at least, that it happened and start looking at what the impact had been on me, then I was probably going to die. I mean, I started realizing that somebody, I have it in the back of the book, grabbed my breast on a subway. And, live in New York, people grab breasts on subways sometimes. And I mean, not to minimize that, it is without consent. But that is the thing that threw me over. Rapes before that, my father's abuse, I kept going. But that threw me into an absolute breakdown. And I needed to get help because I started really, I didn't want to die. Even though I felt like killing myself, I didn't want to die. So I'm really, really grateful that I got the help I needed. Um, s- but that was what drove me to it. And you can't protect. I've met a lot of survivors, and you start talking to people, and 30s is often a time where it starts coming 30s, mid 30s, early 40s, because we reach a point in our lives where we've done all the pretending that we're able to do. And we've kind of created lives for ourselves, and there's still this thing, and it's still looming. And I think, that's where it becomes really critical to get whatever version of help you that you
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, when I wrote my book, I said mine wasn't that bad. And I said mine wasn't that bad because I got some really, again, it's the way I frame it, and it's always how you frame things. So the person that sexually abused me was a very wealthy person. And he was what they call a pedophile right now because he would shower me with a lot of gifts. He made my life a whole lot better as a child. My parents were poor. I'm from a third world country. And I learned to me that I never lived in lack. I'm always have an abundant mindset. And I think that it set me up for life. So when I said that in my book, one of my reviews was that I had a narcissistic view, and I'm thinking, am I narcissistic? I mean, but that is the way I framed it. What do you think about that?
it's hard to say. I mean, we all live our own experiences, and our framing is sometimes it changes with time, and sometimes we start realizing, oh, it was that. I mean, and there are, like I said, I got things. People ask me. I had a relationship with my parents till they died. I would not have had a relationship with my father if, but my mother was very clear that he, have a relationship with her, we had to have him. I had to have him.
Out.
And a lot of people told me, you should walk away. It was that bad. Therapist told me. I was like, I'm not doing it. And I don't know that we can judge other people's reactions or what we view, I think that's what I think about it. And there are things that you got, your personality allowed you to look at the other side and the gifts that the person gave. Obviously, it was bad. Obviously, it's bad to touch a child. But I think that's the thing. And I too often thought, oh, it's not that bad. I'd read about kids being burned and stuff. I mean, I had everything materially that I would want. My parents encouraged me academically. Was not my father did hit us. We were beaten, but we weren't beaten to the point of hospitalization. And, so you start looking at things and going, before I long ago, I've had a couple careers. I was a lawyer, but before that, I was a registered nurse and I worked in emergency room. And I saw kids
You saw the really bad things, right?
said really bad things. And I never lived in the non really bad thing world. And so I kept saying, well, no, it's so easy to tell yourself that, and also it's really hard for other people. It's hard for people. I don't think we should ever judge a victim or survivor's response to what happened to them, because you can't walk in their shoes. I went saw a documentary where the documentarian's grandfather was a pedophile. I was on a panel, moderated a panel for this documentary, and people had been the last time she saw him, she kissed him on his forehead goodbye. She knew it was the last time she was going to and people went crazy about that. And I said it's so hard when it's in a family or someone who's giving you things, even if it's not, growing up in a third world country or growing up with, in a culture where extended family, like friends, there are certain friends who become like family. It's really hard to just go, oh, that, it's easy to tell ourselves that.
Yeah, right. Well, good. I just wanted you to come in on that. So, amazing. So you're telling your story. It seems that you have, you can almost look at it as a third person. I don't see any, as I'm talking to you. I mean, sometimes I talk to people and they cry. And when they do that, then I know that it's still internal. I mean, I'm seeing you talk about your story like if you're reading a book about someone else. So you've obviously, you know, and the same as me, I've gotten to the other side. So, you're standing in your power right now. So what does healing look like for you now that you're in your power, you're on the other side?
Well, for me, healing has been first off, being able to reconnect with that intimacy muscle.
Mhm.
Because I couldn't, not only men, but just friends, I could not hold intimate relationships. And
Mm.
I am now a good I don't have children, but I am a good aunt. I am a good mentor to a lot of young women. I am a good wife. I recently lost my mother-in-law, but I was a good daughter-in-law. And to my mother, I was a good daughter. And even to my father, for, despite the fact that he was not forgiven, I did never forgive him.
No, I
But
don't.
the so I think that's part of healing, is that intimate, really good sister. I have to put that one in. Um, I, I have that's part of healing for me. I think the ability to tell this story so publicly. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think that I had, healed a great deal, which isn't to say that I didn't need more support while I was putting it out there. Um, I think I have peace. I in the morning when I wake up, I'm not doing cartwheels all the time because it's the difficult times in which we're living, but I have
Mhm.
personal peace, and I feel I'm really happy to be alive and part of the world. Could the world be better? Yes. Could I sometimes be better? Absolutely. But I think it's, I'm not that Pollyanna, but it's I think that's what it is, having that peace, having a spiritual connection with for me, I'm not part of a religion. but with the universe, with God, as it were,
Mhm.
I think all of those things for me are part of being healed
Yeah.
and knowing what to do when things get rough.
Yes.
Kind of. So it's a hard thing,
Yeah.
It's not, what I think the ability to find joy, because I didn't know what joy was. I never had that as a child.
Wow. Yeah, that is, yes, that is a hard life, but I'm glad that you have you've come out on the other side. And the way we find happiness is finding our purpose. And I think that your story, the fact that your purpose now is to help others. I don't know what the statistic is, but it's a big one. I would even go hesitate to say like 1 in 4 kids have been
It's
sexually
one in
abused.
I do know it's 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys. That's what's been reported.
Right, exactly. So it's quite a number. It's 25%. It's quite a big number, and like you've eloquently stated that each person, internalizes a different way. Some might internalize, oh, I have no value, so I'm going to be promiscuous and let anybody abuse me. I mean, some internalize it in a different way that, I don't want to live anymore because I'm damaged goods and, try to commit suicide. Some, I would even put you in this boat where you decided to excel academically because that's how you found your value. But yeah, I mean, if there is something that we want to leave is because somebody takes something away from you doesn't make that you're not valuable. And someone wants to take your innocence because that's what they did. That when you abuse a child, you're taking away their innocence. You were supposed to be happy and playing and having friends and doing all the things that young girls do. And there you were trying to kill yourself at 6 years old, or not having relationships as puppy love when you're 13 is the best time of a young girl's life. The first time they fall in love, and the first time a boy kisses them, and trying to find out about their sexual appetite. But someone took that from us, right? So now we're at the other end, trying to survive and trying to hold it together and trying to put on this cloak of shame and things like that. So yeah, awesome. So I applaud you for your bravery. I know that you've gone through quite a lot of, steps to get to this point. So so if there's one bumper sticker message that you want people that read your book to walk away with, what would be that bumper sticker message?
My bumper sticker message is healing is possible, but you cannot hold the secret. You must begin the process of telling. As I said, we all find a different, for me, therapy was the answer. I know you're a life coach. I'm sure that for some of the people that you work with, having you in their life, coaching them was the answer. It's not a one size fits all for all of us. We all have our answer. Some people find it through their church, but you must find that place where you tell your secret and where you trust people and begin to embrace yourself and your story, because if that so really I think it's that healing is possible, but don't you have to start externalizing the story.
Yes, yes, yes. And I would add another bumper sticker to that is that
I'm always thinking about it. You're one.
there's nothing wrong with you. It's not your fault. Right. That's a big one.
That's the other one that's my other one that
Yeah.
I have those two that
Right.
also, which
Yes.
is it's not your fault. I always, and that one is the first one. You
Yes.
got it. That I think the other one I gave you the second bumper
Yes.
sticker. The
Yeah.
first bumper sticker is always it's not your
Your
fault.
fault. Right.
You were a victim. What I always
Yes.
tell people, a crime was, in legal sleaze perpetrated against you by someone else.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, I agree. Amazing. All right. So, Andrea's book is called Such a Pretty Picture. Wow. How did you come up with that title?
well, ironically, I was struggling with titles, and it was my editor and publisher helped me find that. I had so many titles. I was like, I can't figure this out. I had finished the book and nothing worked, nothing gelled. And there's a line in the book where my mother and I are looking at a picture of her and I when I'm a baby, and she looks at it and she goes, "Such a pretty picture." And they found that line, pulled it out. It wasn't like the most important line in the book, but they pulled it out, and when they called me about it, I was like, "Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's it."
Beautiful.
Because it's so
Mm.
because it wasn't. And that was,
Right.
also my mother. She tried to create that for herself and for me, and I emulated that. So I love the title. The second
I love the title too.
I
It's
was like,
beautiful.
brilliant.
All right. So, tell our listeners now where they can pick up your book. If you have a website, if you're on social media, your social media links, so that they can follow you. And I understand that you coach women, so you can tell them about how they can get more information. And even if you have like a phone number, so that I can add it to the show notes of someone that can call. You know.
Okay. Well, the better way for I think is and the women that I coach are I mentor women through an organization called She Can, and the women that I work with are from actually we work with women from post-conflict and climate challenged countries while they're in school here. So
Mhm.
that one is a little bit specific. I work with I have 4 mentees, 3 from Cambodia and 1 from Liberia right now. So and more like a being their auntie mentor. So but my social media is Andrea Lisa Leeb. So it's Andrea Andrea Lisa Leeb Leeb. And if you DM me, that's probably the best way for people to there's 2 ways to do it is to DM me. I check my DMs all the time, my messages, and I will get back in touch with you, especially if are having questions about this issue.
Topic,
The
right?
other, because I have 8 billion emails, so emails never the best way. Um, but the DM I will look at, and the direct message. I also have a website which is Andrea Leeb author.com, and it's Lieb Leeb because there's a famous author with the name Lee, so it's not her. It's it's me. You'll see and I have on there, you can also contact me through my website. There's a contact me sheet. There's also resources. I have hotline numbers for RAIN. It's in my book as well, which is the Rape and Incest National Network. I'm giving 25% of my royalties to them. And so the number is there, as well as some other, both domestic violence and rape treatment here in LA, the UCLA Rape Treatment, where I serve on the advisory board. So that's AndreaLeebAuthor.com. And then I think what was the last thing that you said? So, oh, the book. Where is it available? I always forget that. I call my publicist. I
Well,
say,
that's not even a reason to answer because everybody knows it's on Amazon. So
yeah, you can get it. Basically, you can get my book anywhere books are sold. At most, it's available at most bookshops. If they don't have it, you can order it. They'll order it for you. It's you can get it on the Simon and Schuster website. You can get it on which I have a link on my website, which will take you to a distributor, and you can get it on Amazon. So all of these places.
for you. Good for you. Awesome. Great. A story that needs to be told. It's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, I hope, it's giving somebody some peace. And those of us who were lucky enough not to have gone through it, I hope heightens our awareness that these things
It's
happen.
so true.
You know,
Mothers need to heighten their awareness because mothers are not aware of these things. Like I just said, when my daughter was born, I have a son before I got a daughter. Nothing happened with my son, but as soon as my daughter was born, it was like your grouping incident in the subway. I was triggered. So, yes.
yeah,
Right. So, and she's now 36 and she's never had any incidents. So she's one of the lucky ones.
yes.
3 out of 4 that has not had incidents because her mother made sure of it.
Be proud of yourself for that.
Yes, yes, it is not going to happen again. All right, Andrea, even though this was a very difficult conversation, you made it pleasant.
Thank
And I'm glad that we're kindred spirits, kindred souls, that we are connected because we've experienced the same thing. And we have come out on the other side. I think that I'm a very well balanced and well adjusted person, and maybe there's some issues that are that come up in my relationships that I'm not even aware of. But all in all, I've had a successful life in spite of where I started out from. And so have you. You are a successful life. I heard you said very quietly that you were an attorney, a lawyer at some point. So that's the pinnacle of success. Right. But I mean, you just mentioned it. I mean, I got Vulcan hearing, but yeah, you barely mentioned it, but I picked that up. So, which means that you've had a very successful career. And that is how we get back at the people that meant to damage us. We get back at them by being successful in spite of, right? Don't let anyone take away your power. Don't let anyone, relegate you to the garbage because you think that you're garbage because they made you feel like garbage. You're not garbage. Yes.
Yeah, I think it helps being, to success allows you sometimes to live a life of purpose too,
Right.
because you
Right.
can also, give back.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yes, I enjoy my conversation with Andrea. I will have a short summary of my conversation with Andrea on the show page, which is myrnayoung.com. I would also link out to her book, her website. I will also get the hotline numbers from her website and add it to the show notes as well. And I will link out to her on Instagram so that you can DM her if you have a question or you need help with something. So, yes, that's the purpose of this conversation today, is to point you in the right direction if you're not already there. All right. So thank you, Andrew, for being on the show. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so that you can transform your life. And today we're talking about, you know, again, one of the things that I have done is one of the things that I have done is change the way you look at the thing and the thing you look at will change. So I have somehow internalized changing the way I look at my experience, which is why I said that I benefited from it. But that's probably a terrible thing to say. But anyway, that's how I looked at it. And it helped me to transition out of the victimhood. Okay, so anybody that's listening, you can handle it your own way, but definitely get out of the victimhood. Get your power back. Like Andrea has done, and like I have done, because you're listening to me right now from around the world. So all right. Any last words, Andrea, before you wrap up?
I think thank you again for this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed our time together, and I really appreciate you giving me a little slice of your platform to share my words.
Yes. Well, you're very welcome. Much, much welcome and much appreciated. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.